So, this video is going to be a little bit real for you because I felt like I should kind of explain some of the things that my mind goes through when I'm having a period of anxiety. Because a lot of people know me and they think, how could she possibly have anxiety? How could this possibly happen? She seems so happy all the time. She seems so joyous all the time. Well, yes. And at the same time, no. And what goes up must come down. That's kind of what happens, and that's how the cycle is. I've kind of come to a place where I'm working on accepting this aspect of myself because I do enjoy the high energy that I can bring to people, and I really do enjoy that aspect of myself. So understanding that the polarity is a way to almost in a way balance me, but I do need to find a happy medium in the middle, and that's currently what I'm working on. So I'm going to tell you about how my anxiety manifests. Now, some people might think, when they think of anxiety, full-blown panic attacks, something that's completely visually obvious, where you can physically see the person having a meltdown and it's totally obvious that they're freaking out. And I think that's a lot less common than what's depicted, because most people don't show others what they're feeling or thinking unless they've reached that really, really high melting point, as I say here. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through the steps of what happens in my mind when anxiety starts to build in my brain and in my presence. And again, it's not always obvious because it's when I come home at the end of the day that it really hits me. It's easy enough to push it aside, but if you're not addressing those thoughts, if you're not addressing those feelings, then they're going to come back and they're going to bite you in the butt pretty darn good. So it usually starts off with feeling like some kind of exhaustion or a weakness per se in my energy. And you can kind of feel those days where you just feel a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more vulnerable to certain things that people say. And, it could be an offhanded comment or something that just puts you over the edge. You can be as on top of your mind as you want, but when you're feeling weak, whether it's because of a collection of bad things in a row happening to you, whether it's just feeling tired and depleted, we're creatures of hormone, we're creatures of habit, of nature. Sometimes we're going to go up, sometimes we're going to go down. So when my anxiety hits me, of course, it's when I'm down, and it's when I am feeling vulnerable. And sometimes it can be an offhanded comment from somebody in my vicinity. Sometimes it can be from a romantic interest, or even it can be from a family member. And nobody in making these comments has the intention of causing me harm, because they can't possibly understand that I'm feeling vulnerable, and maybe that day I'm not able to really explain it properly. So yeah, the initial weakness or exhaustion comes up, and then I'm feeling the vulnerability. So I'm like, oh God, okay, I got to put up these walls. I got to put up these walls around myself because I'm feeling vulnerable. Because I am very sensitive and very perceptive to things. So I need to sometimes detach myself in a way from people, from situations, in order to handle them. Otherwise, it can be too emotionally overwhelming. So that's what I've always sort of done, is I've had to take a few steps back, and I am able to handle really intense and stressful situations because of that. But at the same time, it's the aftermath and not being able to deal with it properly that is kind of causing an issue. But again, it's a constant work in progress. So I withdraw. I make very little eye contact with people. I have a hard time looking people in the eye. You kind of see me go a little bit vacant. I don't really talk very much. I don't laugh. I just kind of seem weird, spaced out. Some people explain that as, tired or whatever. We're just kind of like, huh? What? Oh, yeah. Hey, like, where you're just like, where did she go? And I kind of get into this detached, hazy state where literally my visual perception is distorted. So when I look at something, it's just like, it's hazy. It's like, if you've had a few drinks, or you've had weed, or some things like that, where the whole world just seems like warbled and just kind of like, am I dreaming? Am I awake? And then you kind of get really numb. There is that visual distortion though, where the world, it seems like less sharp. It almost feels like you're watching yourself from the inside, and that is a form of detachment, dissociative detachment they call it, and it's a way to almost protect yourself from the intense emotions happening. Now, it's all kind of a buildup, so it's not like it's one or the other. Usually it's kind of hand in hand with all of these things, but it can sometimes escalate, and it sometimes can de-escalate from this detachment state. So either you can be completely subject to your mind, or you can break out of it at this point. At least that's what I find. If I'm able to talk about what's going on, to understand what's going on in myself, then usually it stops here. But sometimes, and it happens for maybe a period of 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 days, depending on the severity of what I've been faced with in terms of my trigger, if I'm able to address that or not, because if it goes unaddressed, it just continues to get worse. So I'm going to keep going through this here. So from this distorted state, the world is almost in like a, rose-colored glasses of sadness, where it's just kind of like, whoa, like everything's just so unreal. What is even real? And then I start to build a negative view of myself, where everything that I'm doing, I believe in energy. What you put out there is what you get back. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling low, that's the kind of energy you're going to attract. Or if you're feeling angry, that's the kind of energy you're going to attract. So in a way, the energy that I begin to attract is negative energy. So people say things that are more critical to me. People act differently towards me, a little bit more guarded, because I feel like people can feel that energy. They can feel it and they understand it. So then you start to build up a case where you're like, oh, people don't like me. I guess I'm not doing things right. Like, what's going on? Like, why am I being treated this way? And because it's like, you lose emotional memory to remember anything happy before. So everything that is supported in evidence in what you're feeling adds to it. And then because you're acting weird, because you're acting distant, people are acting weird, people are acting distant. So you're just thinking like, oh, I guess, people don't like me. I'm failing. I can't do anything right. Or even if somebody gives you a little piece of criticism, something that can actually be very constructive, you think, I'm just not good enough. I can't do this anymore. It's just like, it snowballs. It begins to snowball. And then you build up evidence that starts to support those beliefs. Like, for instance, if you are feeling sad and you're trying to reach out to somebody that you care about, but you can't really describe what you're feeling because you're so hazy and you're in this distorted state, that you might reach out and be like, oh, I'm feeling bad right now. And they might be like, oh, I'm sorry you're feeling bad. And then you start to think, well, they don't really care about me. That's all they said, that they just hope that I feel better. Like, people don't care. People don't, that I'm always there for other people. Why can't other people be there for me? And then it starts to become, in a way, a very selfish view of things. It becomes very selfish because I almost feel like I need to defend myself and I need to protect myself, and everybody becomes the enemy. It's like this weird paranoid state where everybody becomes the enemy. And I black or white categorize people that are safe, people that are unsafe. And if they say something to me that's like heavy or negative, then I might go into that, oh, I can't really talk to this person right now because they're gonna hurt me, or they're gonna make me feel more vulnerable, or and it starts to happen with the people that are closest to me, the people that support me the most, the people that are unwaveringly there, but I convince myself that they will not be there when I need them, and that I feel crazy, and I'm too crazy to tell them what's going on through my mind, because if they find out who I am, they're going to not be interested in knowing me anymore. They're going to walk away. They're going to leave. They're going to start to be like, oh my God, this again? Like, wow, what a crazy person. So that's something that happens. To be honest, that is something that I faced in the past. That's a reaction I faced in the past. All of this is a learning process for me, and I'm honestly quite happy. As much as when I do get stuck in these anxiety states, I am quite happy with how I'm dealing with these things. I'm going to continue a little bit further. So after these thoughts come through my mind, I display what I call, and what some people call protest behavior. So because I start to believe the things that are going on in my head, I start to act out on them. Like for instance, if I text somebody when I'm feeling sad and I kind of like express or put a sad face or something and they don't really respond to that, I think, oh, I guess they don't care, and I guess I won't text them back because like I don't deserve to be treated like that. they're using me. Like, you know, like I get these thoughts where I'm just like, oh, they don't actually care about me, you know, whatever, fine, I won't do this, I won't do that, because like I'm always there for them. So if they're not going to be there for me, then who needs them in my life? So I like push people away. I'm like, no, like I don't need that. Like I'm better than that. Like I've become very consumed. And this is a cycle that's been happening for years. I've kept a diary and I can see it where it's just like, oh, this person hates me. And the next day it's like, oh, it's fine. It's like, oh, this person hates me. And it goes on for like 2 days. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be taken for granted. And then the next day I'm like, oh, it's all good. Because I have a conversation about it, or something helps, or something works. So I follow myself through these steps. And I'm still guilty of doing some protest behavior, where I do the not to text back thing, or I convince myself that no, they don't really want to talk to me. But the only protest behavior that I'm really indulging in right now is almost the isolating aspect. I don't want to talk to anybody because I don't want to create any more destructive cycles. Because when I was in high school, I used to pick fights. I used to be like, oh, so what's wrong? Like, why do you hate me? Like, you know, I used to get into this like crazy. I was crazy, but it's not that I was crazy. It's because I was so convinced that the things that were going on in my head were true, that I started to project that onto the people around me. So moving forward, I isolate myself even more after this protest behavior. So conversation is limited. I'm paranoid of everything and everyone. I can barely sustain a conversation. I don't have any motivation to get things done because I'm in this hazy state. I don't feel real. I just want to sit there and just kind of stare at the wall, or just scroll through my phone, or be mindless. I can't even watch a TV show. I can't even watch a movie without having my mind go and go and go and be like, this, and this, and this, and this is what they said, and this is what's happened before. This could happen again. This could happen again. And that's the thing, like, especially if you had triggers in the past, where somebody has actually hurt you, or somebody has actually ignored you, neglected you, or anything like that, and these things pop up in your real time, that feeling, that emotion from that fear is still there. It comes up as if it's reality. You know, like I think of like an animal. You know, an animal hears a scary noise, and if they get hurt when they hear that noise, the next time they hear that noise, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh. You know, we're in the same way where people act in a certain way, and depending on how sensitive you are, people act a certain way. If it's happened before and it's hurt you, or if somebody's actually gone out of their way to hurt you, that's going to be scary. That's going to bring up all of those feelings and those emotions from before that caused that initial pain. And so your brain is like, warning bells, you're going to get hurt, back away, get away from this person right now. They're going to hurt you, they're going to leave you, they're going to use you, they're going to do all of these things. So when it gets to that point where you're completely isolated and you're convinced because it's your mind, and you think, I have to trust my mind. It's protected me in the past. It's protected you in past situations. But if you continue to project it onto your now, it's going to be very distorted. That's the way you used to operate. That's the thing that has happened in the past. And that's where mindfulness comes in, because if you're too far in the past or you're too far in the future, that's nothing you can control. You can't control those things. And the inability to control things only makes you panic more. And you're like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And you feel helpless, and you feel powerless, and you feel like you can't take control of your life because you're so stuck in your head. You can't get out. And it's scary. It's really scary when you've convinced yourself that the whole world hates you and that you're not worthy of anything. So you hit a melting point. Now, this melting point can go one of two ways. Usually it is of a grand emotional display. So for instance, if it's with a significant other, or if it's with somebody that I'm close to, I might break down in front of them, cry, and tell them how I feel, to the point, where they offer their comfort, to which all of those beliefs that I'd had of them not being there, of people not caring, are completely dispelled because I'm almost taken out of the illusion of that. So talking to somebody about it, or getting out of my head somehow, is not an easy thing to do by yourself, getting out of your head and self-soothing, but it is something that you can learn to do, and I'm getting better at it. by going for walks, by getting into your body, by painting, by actually forcing yourself, despite what your mind is telling you that you don't want to get up, you don't want to do anything, you don't want to move. You have to force yourself to move because you have to get into your body and out of your head. Because the more you're in your head, the more this is going to continue. Your neurons are going to keep firing in the same cycle over and over and over again. And it feels endless. And you're just like, I just want to sleep. I just want to break out of this. I can't possibly handle another second of feeling this way. And it's almost like a refusal to acknowledge your feelings. And this is also where substance abuse can come in. You know, you can do things to numb yourself, alcohol, drugs, things like that. You know, bad behaviors, bad habits, binge eating, things like that, where you just kind of are just like, I don't really care. This is the only thing that I can go to for comfort. And so you do, because you do anything to get out of that space. So that melting point, if you follow the negative aspects of the melting point rather than the positive aspects of being able to get yourself out of it, you might start acting on these thoughts. So like, you might break up with somebody because you're convinced that they're going to leave you. You might self-harm because you're convinced that you're a horrible human being and you need to direct that pain somewhere else. You might shout. You just act on it because you believe that it's true. You honestly believe that it's true, and you don't want to hurt anybody, but you feel so hurt and you're so confused that you don't know what to do. You don't know how to break out of it, and you start to feel crazy and you start to feel alone, and you know, you start to take it out on people, not because you're a bad person, not because you want to hurt people, but because you're so scared. And that's where the heaviness comes. So you can either choose the two sides, right? You can either choose to admit that you are really hurt right now. You need to understand what's going on in your body. You need to understand what's going on in your mind. You need to work on taking yourself out of that. Or you can go down the other aspect of the self-harm, and you can start to hurt yourself in a lot of ways, psychologically, not just physically. You start to tell yourself really bad things, and then you continue to believe it. And it can last for such a long time for people. And if you do take that route, it's just pushing the cycle back. If you take the route where you're acting on your protest behavior and you're acting on your emotions, you're going to push it back to the detachment hazy stage until you get to that point again. Because if you're not addressing what's going on, if you're not able to have dialogue or communication with the person that's hurting you, or remove yourself from the situation where the person that's hurting you is, then you're just going to keep being stuck in this cycle. And it's really difficult to divert from something that you've done for such a long time in order to protect yourself. But understand that this is a way that your anxiety manifests to protect you. It's there to protect you because you have experienced a lot of pain before, and you want to keep functioning as a human being. And when you get into this state, it's almost impossible to see out of it when you're in it. It's very difficult, and I really personally do really appreciate all of the people that I love and that I care for and that are there to support me, because there are so many good things in my life. There are so many good people in my life that are going to be there for me, unwaveringly there for me. And you too can build up a support system like that if you haven't already. Realize the people that are there for you when you're having a hard time, and also realize that they have their own things going on too. So if they're not able to address your concerns, if they're not able to be there for you in the very second that you need them, you need to have enough strength to realize that they will come back around, they will be there for you, and they will support you 110%. Because it's never an easy thing to go through anxiety. But again, it's a part of your mind, it's a part of your buildup, it's a part of who you are. And the more you understand it, and the more you see yourself go through these cycles and understand that these are cycles. They are cycles. They are not truth. They are not fact. And your intuition is not your mind. If something feels bad and you're like, oh, my gut's telling me this, my gut's telling me that, your gut tells you in different ways, but your gut is not associated with all of this destructive thinking. Your higher self, your soul, your spirit does not attack you. It does not attack you. It tells you in subtle ways. Initially, when you have a first impression of somebody where you're just like, where there's no judgment built yet, there's no prejudice built yet, there's no logic to support it, it's an initial impression, that's intuition. without the thoughts. Intuition exists without thought. And so don't always trust your mind. Don't. It's wrong a lot of the time, especially when you suffer from anxiety or depressive disorders. It's wrong. And what you have to do for yourself is create tools of understanding. I keep a diary so I can see the patterns and understand them. And I think that's so important, because when you're having an anxiety attack, you have no emotional memory. You can't possibly think of what you were feeling last week when you were super happy about something. Or even yesterday when you were, just super casual and super calm about things. The emotional memory removes itself and it becomes so overwhelmed and overtaken by the anxiety. You completely lose touch with reality and who you are as a person, what you want, your motivations, your desires, and your interpersonal relationships get tossed up in the air like it's like there's no tomorrow. But that's my anxiety story. Everybody experiences anxiety differently, and whatever you're going through, whenever you're going through it, I'm sending you all of the love and support, because I completely understand how isolating it can feel, how scary it can feel, and know that you are never, ever alone. And if you ever need support, there's so many groups out there that can help, to get you out of your mind, get you out of your head, because people understand. You can send me a message. I'm happy to be here for you as much as I can, but also understand that everybody's got their own thing going on. If I'm not able to give you the support that you need, I'm sorry. I will do the best that I can, but understand as well that it is also your responsibility to take accountability for some aspects of your anxiety. But understand that that support system will always be there so that you can navigate the world in a way that is creative and a way that you feel safe, because you always have a fallback. So yes, I love you all, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And much love and healing to those that do get in their head sometimes. It's not an easy place to be. And I will see you next time. Mwah!